Hello, so I'm making a video game, and in my video game, you are a knight who descends into dungeons to hunt monsters, and you need to extract with their resources. And when you do successfully extract, you sell these resources to buy weapons, skills, and all of that. So that's the basic game loop. But however, you can't hunt these monsters without, you know, a combat system in your game. So my combat system and build system, because combat and build, like a build system, is paramount for this game as design. So there's a build system, and using this build system, I've implemented skills. So if you take a look at the bottom left, you would see three little boxes, or rather four little boxes. One denotes health. The other three denote utility skill, which is the one with the Y header, and skill 1 and skill 2. So essentially, using these three skills, players can mix and match, and they can have very unique builds. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'm just gonna open up my debug menu right now. So if we equip the utility skill that allows us to dash in the air, and maybe we equip a fireball, and maybe the protection skill. Let's go with this. So we can have our knight can now, maybe we want to be able to dash in the air. We can now dash in the air, or we want to be able to shoot fireballs with our knight. We can do that. We can also use the protection skill, which allows us to have a aura of protection around us, which damages enemies. So yeah, using these mix and match skills, players are able to make their own builds, and essentially my goal is to make this a playground, to make the dungeons a playground for the player to just have fun with that's my big issue with roguelikes. They force you to go through a certain path, and I kind of wanted to change that with my game. So in this video, I'm just gonna focus on how this skill system works, because obviously it's quite important to the game. So we're just gonna go over how it works in here, and without wasting any more time, let's get straight to it. So firstly, we're gonna have to discuss how skills are represented. So every skill is essentially a Godot resource, and don't worry too much about the technical names for all that. Just think of it as a data container. So every skill is has a data container. Every skill rather is a data container, and if you take a look to the left here, you can see all the data that each skill possesses. The costs to use the skill, the visual effect that comes out when the skill is used, the name, and a bunch of other stuff. Now, using all this data, we can essentially do whatever we want with our skill. And this helps, give us room to expand this some more. Like I can always just add some more data to this skill and improve its functionality further. The next part of this is every skill has a certain function called a perform. I think, yeah, it has a couple of functions. Yeah, right here. So the function perform skill is what actually happens when the skill is used. So that function holds all the logic for activating the skill. There are a bunch of other helper functions in there, but this is the most important one. So yeah, just think about the skill as a data container, and this data container will house every single thing that this skill needs to work. So that's the first part of this skill system. It's all the data, which is this guy. So all the data we need, we can always improve this and add more functionality to it down the road. And then this is the second important part, the function that actually performs the logic that makes the skill work. So those two are the basis or the starting point for skills. So the next part is how the skills are stored for the player to access. So we'll look at that shortly. So looking at that now, the player node is essentially a bunch of sub nodes. Let's go. So yeah, the player node is essentially a bunch of sub nodes. As you can see, there are a bunch of area 2Ds. There are a bunch of control elements. It's just a bunch of nodes that help the player function properly. But for the skill system to work, the two most important components of this player object is the skill manager and the state manager, rather the state machine. So the state machine is responsible for listening out for the inputs for the player, and then when the right input is pressed and the right conditions are met, it will then transition the player into what I'm calling the use skill state. Now the use skill state is what handles the logic that activates the skill. As you can see, we call that perform skill function that I showed you earlier, and this perform skill function is what would activate the logic for the skill. But where is this skill being stored? The skill is being stored in the skills manager. The skills manager has three variables that hold, or rather, it has an array that holds the active attack skills, and then it has one for the utility skill also. So these hold the skill, and there are a bunch of helper functions that help get the skill from the arrays and all those little things that need to work under the hood for the skills to work properly. But all this essentially just helps the player manage its skills that he has selected. It can remove the skill, etc., etc. So these two work in tandem. So if we go back to the state machine and we check out the use skill state, we'll notice that I store a reference right here to that skill manager in the use skill state. So that allows us to access the current skills the player has equipped, and then we can do a bunch of logic, and then we can actually activate the skill. So first you need to represent the skill, which we have done using resources. Like I said, just think of that as a data container. And next we need to store these skills for the player to access, which we use the skills manager components that I made to handle that. And then we also use the state machine to transition in and out of our skill usage, and ensure the player can still move around after using the skill, or when they use the skill, prevent them from moving around, etc. Once those have been essentially made, you essentially have the basis for your skill system. It's fairly simple because it looks simple now because I'm giving like a overview, but there's like a lot of potential for bugs with this. With anything you make, there's a potential for having bugs in there. So that is a very brief overview of how it works. So the main point of this video is to showcase a few of the skills I have implemented. So without wasting any more time, let's check that out. So there are two types of skills in my game. There are utility skills and attack skills. Utility skills are fairly situational, like they give you abilities that you wouldn't regularly have. For example, you gain the ability to jump in the air, you gain the ability to dash in the air. So they're meant to be situational skills that change the playstyle of the player. Excuse me. And we have attack skills. So I'm just gonna show you a few of those. Like we got fireball. I'm sure I haven't used these in a while, so I'm pretty sure some of them might be buggy because I have worked on the skill system a bit, so they may not all work as the same. So let's take a look at the fireball skill and the flame skin. So flame skin allows you to deal fire damage around you, and the fireball allows you to throw a fireball. So if we go back and okay, let's go test it out. So we can throw a fireball, you know. We can also throw said fireball, and then, you know, we can stack burn on our enemies using said fireball. So, you know, the skills allow you to do a bunch of interesting things. So let's check out the other one, which is the flame skin. So if we activate the flame skin, we now, you know, are able to damage enemies around us with, you know, flame damage. Pretty cool. Let's check out another skill. Attack skill. So let's try a holy orb. We can throw a orb of holy energy. I showed the divine protection earlier in the video, so we could probably check out the oh, this is a cool one. I hope this still works. So the earth impale is a unique skill. I wanted it to do a ton of damage and a ton of, you know, effects to the enemy, but you get stunned for a few seconds. So I hope that still works. It should still work. Yes. So, and then you get stunned and then you can resume after. So it's meant to be like a high cost, high reward type of skill. We also got the holy orb skill, similar to the fireball. It's just a projectile but with different properties. And there's a tornado skill that I think might be bugged, but let's take a look at it. It's pretty interesting. So let me turn this on. Actually, the tornado skill is interesting in the sense that it's supposed to bounce off walls, and you can use it. So I don't know if this will work. Yes. So if you fire it, it should come back because it bounced off the wall. So this is what it looks like. We throw it, it can bounce off walls and, you know, go through enemies. If you fire it, yeah, it lasts a while. It should bounce off that other wall. No, it didn't last that long, but doesn't matter what direction, it essentially bounces off walls. And if you play your cards right, you can use it to chain a bunch of like attacks in the small spaces. Let's see what other skills I can showcase in here. We've taken a look at these are just fireballs. The dead sight is pretty interesting. So there's a status effect in my game called blind. Essentially it disables the enemies from seeing you. So if I activate this, we can use the sight, and if we use it again, the player is going to be blind, and, you know, I'm gonna have to deactivate the game to show but essentially it prevents them from seeing you, so you can just walk past them, or maybe just gives you an edge in combat. So with all these different skills and different combinations, players will be able to mix and match. And, you know, essentially, like I said, I want this game to be a sandbox where players just go into the dungeon, mix and match whatever they're feeling like, you know, hunt whatever monsters they want to hunt, and just try and escape. So yeah, this concludes my little showcase. I hope this was an enjoyable video for you, and stick around. There should be more content down the pipeline because I haven't stopped working on this project. I'm hoping to finish it. I don't have a finish date yet, but everything production is going smoothly, so we should still be working on this until we reach our goal. So once again, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.